Mansa Musa was probably the richest man history has ever seen. And yes, he was African, not African by association, not some side note, a real West African emperor from Mali, sitting on one of the most valuable trade systems the world had at the time. People still struggle with that fact because it breaks the picture they were taught. Wealth, power, and history are not supposed to look like that to them. What makes Musa stand out is not just the size of his empire. It is the kind of wealth he controlled. Mali sat on gold, salt, and trade routes that mattered to half the known world. Gold from Bambouk and Bura moved through his hands. Salt too, and salt was serious money then. If you control the flow, you control the price. That is the engine. Not magic, not a fairy tale, just hard geography, trade, and state power working together. Now, people love to throw around numbers like $400 billion and act like that settles everything. It does not. We cannot measure Musa the way we measure a modern billionaire with bank accounts and stock prices. His wealth was tied to land, tribute, trade taxes, and political control. So the exact number is shaky. But the bigger point is still solid. By the standards of his time, he was absurdly rich. Rich enough that his name still travels across centuries. And this is where outsiders often miss the point. They hear richest man in history and think it must be some European king or modern tech boss. But Africa has always been part of the real economic story. The mistake is not ours. The mistake is the narrow lens. Mali was not some empty place waiting to be discovered. It was a serious empire with administration, roots, scholars, and leverage. Musa's wealth came from structure, not luck alone. His famous pilgrimage to Mecca showed that wealth in a very loud way. He traveled with so much gold that stories of the journey spread across North Africa and beyond. That kind of display was power, but it also had consequences. When one ruler floods a market with gold, prices can shift. So even greatness has a cost. Visibility can become distortion. That is worth remembering. Riches do not just sit there looking pretty, they move economies. Still, let us be honest about the limits. Musa's story is not a simple celebration. It is also a reminder of how much African history gets flattened into one or two names, then forgotten again. We remember the gold, but not always the systems behind it. We remember the spectacle, but not the discipline that made it possible. And we often forget that wealth without stable institutions can vanish fast. So yes, the richest man in history was African. That should not sound surprising, but somehow it still does. Maybe that is the real problem, not Musa's wealth, our memory. If we understand his story properly, we stop treating Africa like a footnote and start seeing it as what it has always been, a place where power, trade, and ambition have shaped the world for a very long time.